So right in front of me is Northwestern Mutual, and they focus on whole life. But they don't have a wide variety of whole life, but you can have interest-sensitive whole life. There are different versions of whole life. John Hancock had unbelievable different versions of whole life, highly creative. Northwestern Mutual should get more creative and offer different forms of whole life. But right here is the Hampton Inns and Suite, and they got the Sweet Basil Cafe. So, but what I'm saying is here is Old Orchard Mall. And this is where my friend Lily Kim had Taste of Korea. They had it a couple years in a row. But anyways, here at Old Orchard Mall. But this is where I used to work, right here. This is Old Orchard Shell, and I used to work right here. And so the Cohn family, all of them were always great to me. And the girls, their husbands that they married, those guys were great to me. Matt and Tim and them, they're just very good people. So, anyways, here's Old Orchard. And this is where Saks used to be. So this used to be Saks Fifth Avenue here at Old Orchard Mall. But what I'm saying with the Hamptons, and there's other hotels around here, you can stay up here for a weekend and make an adventure, but you have to have activities planned at the mall. So what each day, say you're going to the mall, what restaurants you're going to eat at, what shops you're going to see, break it up and make it an adventure. So don't just walk around the mall and complete it in one day, but say go to Macy's and some others, and then, or Barnes and Noble. Here's the Cheesecake Factory. And so you can go there, or California Pizza Kitchen. So you stay here, you go to Macy's, and then you go to Barnes and Nobles, and then you end up at the Cheesecake Factory. And then the hotel has a pool. Yes, the hotels, a lot of hotels have pools, and you can go swimming. Like I used to let my sister bring the kids up to the Marriott Courtyard, and I got her a room to change in, and she brought up the kids, and they would go swimming in Marriott Courtyard pool. So, but the whole point is, why not from around here make an adventure? There's Vernon Hills, there's a big malls up there, and you can get a hotel room and make a weekend of it and just stay in that area. That's what my nieces used to do with Rosemont. They would get a hotel room and Rosemont's small, but my niece Lisa and Jenna and that with their friends would get a hotel room so they didn't drink and drive, and they would get a hotel room in Rosemont and go out Friday and Saturday night in different bars and there, and then there's the movie theater and so on. But they would make a weekend of it. And they lived right up in Deerfield at the time. They were living with their mom. But they would get their friends and go to Rosemont, get a hotel room for the weekend, and then hang out in Rosemont for the weekend. But how many people do that in Illinois? You can go up to Rockford and hang out for the weekend. People from Rockford can come out here and hang out for the weekend. Or if you're working during the weekends, you can hang out. Your weekend might be Monday, Tuesday. You can come and hang out. And my family, we went to this restaurant, and it was good, Roca. And there's a lot of us here. And it was a good meal. And I like North Face. I used to have some North Face. It's great ski clothing or winter clothing. And you think North Face would be against global warming, right? Global warming, they got to be ready to convert then, because with global warming, their whole thing is going to go away. So no one's going to need heavy things in that way. So if I was the president of North Face, I would be anti-global warming and doing everything to prevent environmental change in that way and to prevent the temperatures from rising. Now here's Bloomies, just a little mini Bloomingdale's. And so they're small footprint. It makes sense. It's another way to go about it. You have your big Bloomies, the full thing, and then you have your little version, your small ones. So, again, I used to spend a lot of time in Maggiano's, a lot of wholesaler meetings here. This restaurant, Franklin Templeton, my Franklin Templeton rep, I used to come here for a lot of meetings with Franklin Templeton. This is where he hosts them in. And then there's the Doubletree Hotel that's over there. And my friend Lance, his mother, moved up in the Doubletree. And God bless her. Hopefully she's not dead. Lance Levy, his sister and mother, I get along with incredible. And other sides of his family I met. And God rest his father. His father was nice to me as well. And he used to run Southern Wine and Spirits. He was a big guy there. But here is Nordstrom's. This is out of California. And they have some nice looks going on with the girls, and really sexy one with a very short skirt. And anyways, so there's a lot of shopping up here, and this is in the Skokie area. And this is where Jen used to shop a lot, right here. She used to shop at Old Orchard a lot because she lived in Skokie. And when I first started dating her, she lived with her mother. And so she lived at home. I lived on Logan Square with my brother. And she was still living at home. She was traveling as a consultant. And so living out of her mother's place, she had her room and everything, was no big deal. But when she started dating and that, and before I don't know if she purchased it before we started dating or just after we started dating, her condominium. But she didn't move in until the summer of somewhere in the summer or late or fall of 2002. But again, she used to spend a lot of time up here's Skokie Boulevard in Skokie, or Old Orchard Mall. And so did her sister. I would assume her sister and her brother in that. And we used to go to the theater right there, and Old Orchard Theater. And then we went down to some restaurants down here. There's an Asian restaurant I used to go to. We went to. Yep, there it is. That's the Chinese Laos Si Chung. But my pronunciation's off. But anyways, there's the Chinese restaurant, and you have all these, and then you have Portillo's, which, seems to hate me. I mean, why would you threaten to beat the hell out of somebody? Because you love them? No. We call that domestic violence. So, I only do things out of self-defense. But, again, this is and there's a Lover Lane. I wanted to go there with Jen. Truly. I did go to a type of Lover's Lane with two girls, and that was, to explore self-pleasing devices. So I went along, I was curious, and, I just watched them shop. And anyways, but it was like a Lover's Lane. But it didn't have as much clothing. But it still had all kinds of things, like edible panties and other things. So, never got to go there with Jen. It would have been nice to go there. It's good for couples to go there, to spice up the situation. And so, anyways, I'm heading down towards Dempster, and we're not too far away in this whole area, Skokie. And so I don't know the tax base, but they used to there's a ton of Russian Jews. Yeah, Skokie had a sign, and they were bringing in a lot of Russian Jews. So there's a lot of Russian Jews that live on the North Shore. Lots of Russian Jews. So, yeah, lots of Russian Jews that live here. And I mean a big amount of Russian Jews. And they used to have a big thing. The synagogues wanted to save the Russian Jews. And so a lot of Russian Jews immigrated into Skokie. So lots of Russians that live up here. So this is where I went with Jen, that ended up being Sam's cousin, who at Blades, who I went for hair. He owned Pita End. He's a Palestinian. They're cousins. He's a Palestinian, from my understanding. So Pita End is a Palestinian business. And then I'm up here, and this is where Charles, Jennifer's brother, he got a caddy scholarship to the University of Illinois, full ride. They have a house there, and obviously they provide meals. They pay for the book, and he has housing, meals, books are taken care of. They take care of the tuition. He was a caddy here. But excellence before God. He won the scholarship. Full ride, 4 years to the University of Illinois. Housing, books, and food and all that. And he used to caddy right here. So I don't know if he's still a caddy. Because if you go to college, they can still have caddies for college golfers. And you could get a caddy scholarship to the University of Illinois to caddy for the girls or the men's or the women's golf team at the University of Illinois. So they could actually he could have continued on being a caddy at the University of Illinois, and then you qualified to be a professional caddy. So just like when you come out of college golfing, entering the PGA Tour. But the PGA Tour should require you to go to college, and after you completed college and completed the NCAA golfing, you end up in the pros. And this is where Jen grew up here. This is her house. I don't know who owns it now, but her mother and that, we used to get along great. She was always nice to me. Yeah, I mentioned things, but when she interacted with me, she cared and super, and then she repented, and I think she considers me a better person than her son-in-law, but I don't know, just based on our conversation. So anyways, and Jen used to live up here, and there was a synagogue right here, and she lived near a synagogue, and we talked about her growing up, and there's a lot of Jewish people in Skokie, and so there's a lot of bagel shops in Skokie, I would assume. I just know New York Bagels and that's on Touhy Avenue. That's still in Skokie, and it's right across the street from a synagogue. You think synagogues would invest in delis and bagel places, invest in Jewish food. And so I like Jewish food. I love matzo ball soup and all that stuff. So this is the synagogue. I don't know what it's called, but again, she grew up right over here, and it's Shalom. They're saying hi. Shalom means hello and goodbye. It's a very efficient word. And I forget something of Niles. It's I don't know how to pronounce it. But anyways, it's whatever synagogue here. But again, she loved growing up here. And then she went to Niles North High School. And I went to her brother's graduation. Her brother's graduation from Niles North, they had at the arena at Northwestern. Yeah, the ceremony was at Northwestern University. not at their place. Like ours, Deerfield High School, you graduate at Ravinia. The ceremony's at Ravinia. Niles North, the graduation ceremony is at Northwestern University for Niles North High School. So she loved growing up down here. And Charles, like I said, the PGA should consider this a pathway and promote education. And the golfers have to go through college to enter the PGA Tour. Truly, raising the standards, forcing them to get a college degree to enter the PGA Tour. Why wouldn't they want to do that? So, again, it forces them, and they can't enter the tour until they finish college. So they're an NCAA golfer. They got 5 years, 1 redshirt year, 4 years of playing, and then once they're done, and then caddies are the same way. So you caddy for the women's or men's golf team in college, and that trains you on to the next level to be a professional caddy. So you caddy in high school for the golf team in high school. Truly. And then there could be an elementary school golf team and somebody wants to be a caddy and not a golfer. It's just like I had friends that started in youth baseball and then went from youth baseball and it's minor league, or I should say youth baseball, elementary school level, midget minors, midget majors, t-ball, truly. And they were umpires. And they went from there and then they started umping in high school. Started becoming an umpire in high school. And once they were an umpire in high school, they became an umpire in college. And once they were an umpire in college, they ended up being an umpire in the minor leagues. So they went from college to minor league baseball. From minor league baseball, they finally made it into the major leagues. But they started basically at T-ball umpiring. And this is only one person I know, but he started T-ball, moved up to the midget minors, midget majors, and then moved up to the high school, college, then into the minor leagues, and then into professional baseball. So that was his career path. And his career path, he started very young. Remember, I was in 7th grade and younger, and I was umpiring at Horner Park. So I learned this career path, and so I could have continued umpiring at Horner Park, then umpired for high school, umpired for college baseball, umpired for minor league baseball, and then eventually umpired for professional baseball. So there's supposed to be this same thing for basketball referees. You start with elementary school basketball, and you referee for that. Then you move into junior high, say, or middle school. Then you move into high school, then college, and then into the pros. Now, I don't know if there's minor league. You would say you could go to Europe and ref there, and then come in back to the NBA. But these are career paths, and these people that do this are exceptional. But people don't think about this, but these are how you become incredible at what you do. You start from very young and you have a path and you stay on the path. I'm not saying that some people might not change, but you can go in and sell all kinds of umpire gear. So if you don't go into umpiring, umpires use face mask protectors, and they have the pad they hold and the clicker, and they have the shin guards and shoes and pants, and there's all kinds of uniforms for umpires, and you name it. And then there's all kinds of additional training and umpire academies and so on, truly. And then there can be certifications you can get. Like Jerry Markwright, who I became friends with, he was the head referee in the Super Bowl for many years, repeatedly. But they only choose one team. There's only one game, one team. And that team, and just like the NCAA, that national championship team, That's supposed to be the best referees, and they get paid the bonuses, as Jerry made a fortune in bonuses refereeing the Super Bowl. And so he used to live out here in Skokie. So again, that's the elite. The referee, the Super Bowl, is incredible. You think of the players, well, it's the same for the referees. It is their Super Bowl. It is the Super Bowl for the cheerleaders, too. Those teams have cheerleaders and their staff. It's their Super Bowl for all the administration and all the supporting and the vendors that support that team. It's their Super Bowl as well. It's their World Series. It's their NBA championship. So everybody that's affiliated, that's a big deal. They're all in the Super Bowl. They're supporting you. And the Chicago Cubs have all their vendors. And when the Chicago Cubs go to the World Series, all that, besides their administration and all that, all those vendors and that have just made it up to the Super Bowl level or the World Series level because they do park and park. So they would have the World Series at the Chicago Cubs Stadium. It's a little different with the Super Bowl. It's one game. But in baseball, just like in basketball, it's at the home team stadiums, meaning their stadiums. So if we play the Los Angeles Lakers, so many games in Los Angeles, so many games in Chicago, and it's the Super Bowl for the vendors. All those vendors, it's a big deal. Now you're getting people from all over the world coming to eat your hot dogs. So I don't know why we don't want the World Series, why we don't build the new stadium, why we don't get the Super Bowl. Truly, why we don't get these things. Because it would be the Super Bowl. And remember, Chicago is an agricultural leader in the world, and it's an agricultural food product leader in the world. And being on the big stage by winning the NBA championship and them coming down and trying our food vendors at the stadium, they don't think of it that way, and they're totally wrong. When the Cubs were in the World Series the last time, that was the World Series for all the beer vendors, all the food vendors, the popcorn, the candy. They were on the big street. People from all over the world were coming in to see the Chicago Cubs play. And then you had TV and news from all over the world coming in. And now you have the Super Bowl for them. And they can display their product. And so a Japanese reporter is here, and it ends up eating the food. And now the food, he reads it, and he's like, hey, can you tell the food critic for your Japanese Times paper or whatever the Japanese paper is? And the Chinese press here, like the Chinese Daily that's local, but the press in China, maybe they publish, the Chinese Daily publishes in China too, and they eat it, and maybe you want to tell your food critic, or have your food critic invite the food critics, truly invite the food critics with the press. The press is covering the game, and you're doing the World Series, invite the food critics as well. Truly. And then they can make comments on fashion and many other things, but invite the food critics. So it's the World Series. When the Cubs go to the World Series or White Sox go to the World Series, and just think if we had a Cubs-White Sox World Series, then that would be exclusive to all the Chicago food vendors. And why wouldn't we want a Chicago Cubs-White Sox World Series? And for, hopefully it goes 7 games, but at least, it's going to go 5 games minimum. Well, 4 games minimum. Hopefully the other team at least wins 1 and it goes 5 games. But the whole point is, it's the Super Bowl for the food vendors. And so they can feature the food. That means the hot dogs, hamburgers, pizza, and to all the international press. And so why don't you invite the food vendors down for the NBA championship, for the PGA things? How about the PGA when they're doing that? There's got to be food for whatever the PGA Championship is, how about the Davis Cup? I don't know where that gets held, but why can't they hold the Davis Cup here in Illinois? Why doesn't the PGA hold the Davis Cup? And these come from all over the world, and that brings the press from all over the world. The Davis Cup does. And so they can come down here, and now the food vendors and all that get featured. And the international press is there covering the golfing, but also they can bring the food critics with them. So, again, there is opportunity if we get the stadium and get the Super Bowl. It's a World Series for all the food vendors as well, because all that international press is going to eat the food. And Illinois is number one in these areas, like packaged food products. We're the leader in the world. Packaged food products, we lead the world. And so make no mistake about it. And so I'm in the village of Niles. And here's where I used to go to, the Super H Mart. And it's a good place, but I haven't been here in a long time. So, but again, the Super H Mart. And so it's a different H than Home Depot. Home Depot is HD. H Mart is HM. So, Wash U, car wash. And so here I'm going into H Mart. There's a spa sauna. And here's a Home Depot. And so the Home Depot. Remember how they used to say Facebook was the Facebook? But it emphasizes the Home Depot, the original. You put the to make it distinct, not generic. Facebook, the Facebook is distinct. Facebook is generic. The Home Depot is distinct. And so it's right here near King Spa, and I guess it's King Spa and Sauna. So you got the Home Depot, which I'm a huge fan of, and then they got all the stuff coming for the summer, getting ready to plant for the spring. It's here, and the garden centers are booming, and we hear better food, better life. I agree. Super H Mart. And so this is a Korean grocery store. And there's several Korean grocery stores in Illinois. So we have a very big Korean presence here in Illinois. So grand opening of something. Grand opening of Ho K-Dogs. I think those look good. I like corn dogs and K-Dogs. I used to like corn dogs. You eat them at the fest. So I love corn dogs. And you dip them in mustard. And so this is like corn dogs, but they have many different varieties now. Before it was just the corn dog. Now you can get hot dogs, but they don't sell those at the ballpark. Hot dog on a stick. It's very convenient to eat at a ballpark. It's very convenient to eat at an NBA stadium. And you can have a vendor that has that little flip thing that opens up, you know, and you can sell hamburgers that way. They did. And you can sell hot dogs that way. And you can even have mini ones that are for the kids. Mini dogs for the kids. So, again, they can sell those. And you can have a little, like they have the Chicken McNuggets. You would have a little box, and it would have the mini dogs. So you can get the bigger one on a stick. Or you can get the mini dogs without the stick, and without the stick is better for the kids. So it's like a Chicken McNugget, but it's those those K-Dogs, Korean dogs, but they have the mini version, and they put it in a box like Chicken McNuggets. And McDonald's can invest in that. So they can diversify into hot dogs. They were into Mexican food with Chipotle. McDonald's used to own Chipotle. They were in chicken when they owned Boston Chicken. So they purchased Boston Chicken, but they originated Chipotle. So again, you have here the Super 8 March, and then you got O'Reilly Auto Parts next door. And you have the car wash and some other places, and My Chicago Optics, and, Asians, they, tend to love glasses. I used to buy a Japanese designer, Matsudo, and I bought his glasses, and they were awesome. He's a high-end clothing designer, Japanese clothing designer. And Dave So, I don't know what that is, if I'm pronouncing it right. Anyways, but it's awesome. We have a lot of Korean grocery stores here. So, and they have an Amazon box right here, right next to the H Mart. So they can get into that. They can grow their presence through the Korean grocery stores here and in Korea. So maybe Jeff Bezos wants to invest and be an investor in the H Mart or Jungbu or whatever, and build out his Amazon through there like he has Whole Foods. Well, then he can buy an ethnic grocery store like the Patel brothers if you want to focus on expanding back into India. Another way is to expand backwards. The Patel brothers originates here, and you would open up the Patel brothers in India. If they don't already have their version, then you would have to, it would be U.S. Patel brothers or something like that, but it would have to be different. They have their Patel brothers to make it so there's no conflict. It would be the U.S. Patel brothers or the Chicago Patel brothers. So, anyways, and this is a civic center, civic, cultural for people. So a civic center plaza. So anyways, they can do all of this and, but there's great opportunities. So Amazon can expand into an ethnic focused grocery store. Okay, that makes sense. It's another way to build a core and satellite. And now they have Whole Foods at the higher end. I don't know, buying a Jewel or Mariano's that are mid-level, or buying a dollar store and something to, fill out the vertical. So the lower end, and the dollar store has food. I bought some food at the dollar store. They have lots of canned goods and other stuff that are less perishable. And truly, if I was cooking at home in that, the dollar store would be a place to go. They have tons of canned goods and tons of stuff that, is very little perishable. They have a lot of freezer product. So it's really good. And so, again, these are nice areas, nice places to live. This is the North Shore, but there's Oak Brook and so on. There's lots of nice places to live. And so it's just not the city of Chicago. So anyways, that these things can be great for Chicago. Like I said, I don't understand why we aren't focused on, winning titles again with our sports teams, and that promotes where we're a leader in agricultural and food products, that we bring the world press to the Chicagoland, and they get to eat the food, and they get to go to the restaurant. They're going to go out dining in the different places and so on, and the press can, write on the Chicago. So it's, put your best foot forward. If we get the World Series, if our baseball teams are that good, which I've tried to help them be that good, and our basketball and hockey teams, it's the same thing in hockey. The Stanley Cup is, for all the vendors of hockey, it's the time that sell the food and everything, but they sell a lot of t-shirts and other things, and they get a lot of out-of-town people purchasing. And so, again, I don't know, why we're not focused that way, and it would generate an incredible amount of interest in this area and generate an incredible amount of fan base and big open lot here in Niles. So Niles, Skokie border each other. And my one client, he lived in Niles, and it was Park Ridge. He considered Park Ridge a step up. He was a teacher in Park Ridge, but lived in Niles. So, anyways, you have all these communities, Park Ridge, Niles, Skokie, and here's the Amazon Fresh. So he's in the grocery business, so maybe he can get ethnic in the grocery business, get into the Indian side of foods, get into the Korean side of foods. Truly. And I don't know if there's any Chinese grocery store chain that's here. But again, it's a way for him to have the general and then the satellites, the Pacific. So, and there can be a thing where there's crossover where they can have some of the ethnic products in, Whole Foods and Amazon Fresh as well. Ones that focus over into the Caucasian market per se. So they have to make sure that Caucasians are friendly with, like, kung pao chicken. Most Caucasians know that, and